He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. That makes us Mac and Mac here on Birds 365. And we've got Jeff Kerr from CBSSports.com to jump in and talk football with us. Jeff Kerr, have the Eagles solved their linebacker questions because of two signings yesterday of veteran guys who were out there waiting for an acceptable contract offer and took what the Eagles put on the table yesterday?
I think they created even more questions at linebacker because they added these guys. But I think they solved a depth problem, if you want to say that. I mean, John and I saw it last night. Ben Van Summerlin was basically running the first team because
that was awesome. I did not think I'd be writing that sentence this year. Ben Van Summerlin, the quarterback of the Eagles defense.
And who would have thought that? Like, people are worried about, how's this going to affect the Kobe Dean? And I'm thinking to myself, well, it can't. He's the green dot. Like, this is the guy. So,
that Ben is knocking at his door. Don't be so sure.
Yeah. You know what? I felt so bad for Christian Ellis last night that he had to cover Devonta Smith on that crossing route. Like, come on, Eagles.
That worked out about as well as expected. Yeah. I mean, sometimes you get caught. I mean, it's a drag route. That happens to every NFL team. But yeah, linebackers, zone coverage. And Devonta Smith. Yeah, that went about as well as expected for poor Christian. But I think he's played well overall, Christian Ellis. You know, it's going to be interesting to me, Jeff. Nick Sirianni had a difficult job last night, and I love the linebacker room. I love the linebacker. Well, come on, Nick. I mean, you're bringing in two guys on August 6th who got a ton of experience. That tells me the Eagles don't love their linebacker room, but I think they should kind of like Christian Ellis, don't you think?
I think so. As a matter of fact, if you had told me after 4 practices the Eagles are going to start the year with the Kobe Dean and Christian Ellis, I would have been okay with that. I thought Christian Ellis has played well this training camp, and I was excited to see him in the preseason. Now, I also am not surprised the Eagles added at linebacker. I thought they would make an upgrade there, and everybody has this Patrick Queen fantasy. He's not leaving Baltimore. So
it's Jody's, he's not leaving. They think they're a Super Bowl contender. Benny Sherrato told him. Yeah. And the kid, the 3rd round pick, Simpson, he's not ready. So, I mean, I don't think they're trading him. I think the Eagles would love to steal him if they could, but I don't think Baltimore is trading him. So
same with Tampa and Devin White. I don't think Tampa really wants to trade him. I don't think Todd Bowles wants to trade him, and it seems like everything's patched up. I heard Devin White speak the other day. He said, look, we're all good. I want a contract, but I'm getting paid $11 million to play football. I'm good.
Now, if you want to splash before you jump in, Jody, Isaiah Simmons. What about Isaiah Simmons?
Ooh, that's an intriguing one, too. Even Zaven Collins at this point, but
I don't think they trade Zaven, but
I don't think they would either.
What makes you think they trade Isaiah Simmons?
Because I don't think they're in love with Isaiah Simmons. Yeah, they sort of messed up him like they messed up Hassan Reddick back in the day.
Yeah, but see, that's Gannon. So if he can't play in Gannon's defense, and the defense is basically still the same with little tweaks, what makes you think he's going to be able to play the defense here if after a couple of weeks of practice?
Well, it changes scenery, that type of thing. You know, sometimes people get engaged. Sometimes you need to get out of a bad situation for yourself. Even though from his perspective, it's a new coaching staff and all that kind of stuff, new GM. That's just a name I heard at the NovaCare complex. It's probably pie in the sky, but
yeah, I think it's because
I'll tell you what.
If Jonathan Yazzie wasn't the coach, do you think we'd be having this conversation?
Maybe not. Yeah.
I will say this, John, and you and I have talked about this before. When they do the 3 safety look, Isaiah Simmons would look pretty good in that.
Yeah, well, the big nickel, yeah. Which it's going to be interesting how these two guys affect that. By the way, we'll go down that route. Kayvon Wallace. I mean, he's the starting safety right now. He seems to be inching past Terrell Edmonds.
Had a good camp. He's had a really good camp.
That is not one I thought I would see. It's still early, as everyone will tell you. But boy, I did not expect Kayvon Wallace to be this relevant in the conversation. That's got to count for something.
Yeah, and I know everybody wants to point out to his past games and his past 3 years in the league, but I'll tell you this: he's been in position a lot, and he's been solid. And I think that's what they need. I think that's what they were hoping Terrell Edmunds would be. But you're right; he's outperforming Terrell Edmunds at this point. Now, what I want to see is, and I tweeted this morning: Sidney Brown popped Kennedy Brooks last night. He looked like he was going to pop Joseph Nagata. I need to see Sidney Brown these preseason games because he is slowly moving up.
Well, he can move. He's got a burst that the other safeties don't have, but sometimes that burst takes him in the wrong direction. And it's very rare. Sean Desai mentioned he's got to clean up the mental errors as a rookie. It's very rare that coaches are that honest. He's clearly the most athletic and the most gifted, but I think he's a ways away from sort of figuring it out. That's my take on Sidney Brown.
And it is complicated. Go ahead, Jay.
I was going to ask both you guys because each individual has to be judged by what they do during practice. And as you say, John, Desai being very candid about it. But then there's the overall view of how the Eagles handle rookies that does change from year to year when the coaching staff changes like this one does. But there's also a general philosophy that usually you can take from the way that a team is going to handle rookies. Do you think that is also holding Brown back a little bit, that they're just in general not willing or not wanting to jump in and have a rookie start a first game of the season?
That's tough because I feel like if push came to shove, if they weren't so deep at certain positions, I think you would see Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith play week 1, but they don't have to do that. And and I've noticed they're trying Nolan Smith in a bunch of positions. Now, what was it, Friday, Johnny was playing?
Yeah, that's gonna stop now.
Yeah, that's over. but Nolan Smith on the edge is what I like. Him playing the Son Red, that's perfect for it. Jalen Carter, again, I have high expectations for Jalen Carter. I think Jalen Carter is going to be fine, but I kind of like how they're acclimating him on the second team. There's no pressure right now. It's Fletcher Cox and Jordan Davis. And I know Eagles fans I tweeted it last night what their first team defensive line was set up in 11-on-11s, and they're like, Fletcher Cox, why can't we get rid of him? I'm like, the guy had 10 sacks last year. He's a really good football player.
Yeah, he is. It's weird. The Fletcher angst. I don't know. There's certain guys. Slay gets it as well as an aging player a little bit. I don't know, man. He was very effective last year. He's not what he once was. That's probably it. So, but you could do a lot worse than having Fletcher Cox in there. I am a little bit surprised though that Nolan has gotten more reps, but that probably comes down to injury. I mean, Hassan Reddick was out. So there was more opportunity for Nolan Smith to get some first team reps, whereas Fletcher's been healthy. Jordan Davis has been healthy. Melton Williams, Marlon Tuipulotu is playing very well, by the way. Marlon T is playing very well. This defensive line, I mentioned it with Jody, and I'll throw it out to you as well, Jeff. It's a great problem to have, but it is a problem to keep all these guys happy and get them reps and keep them effective. And Jalen Carter's a part of that. How do you keep them off the field, but how do you take Fletcher Cox off the field? That's a delicate balancing act, I think.
I think when you see these guys productive late in the game, late in the second half, the fourth quarter, when it is a one-score game, I think that's how you do keep them healthy and you keep them fresh and in a way happy. I think everybody wants to play every snap, but if the Eagles have this belief and if you buy into it that it's not feasible in this defense, you're going to be rotating. That is where it helps guys like Fletcher Cox, like Brandon Graham. I still think guys like that appreciate how healthy they were come December and January last year. And I think that's what they got to preach to these young guys. And luckily, Nolan Smith is wise beyond his years and can do that. And, Jalen Carter, he's not going to make a scene per se, but I think they they know in their heart of hearts, all those defensive linemen, at least the guys that we know are playing, that they're just not going to be playing 100% of the snaps. But you're right, guys like Marlon Tuipulotu and Contavious Street. I don't know Contavious
I don't know
Street makes
how
this
he
team.
makes.
What do you think
Barring
they
injury.
use? Do you think
And
they
he's
trade?
an NFL player. He's an
Yeah.
Moromo as a rookie.
He's had a good camp too.
It's going to be difficult to keep him. I mean, he got poked in the eye last night, so maybe he gets slowed down. Moro Jomo, maybe he gets slowed down a bit, but they're incredibly deep on the defensive line. And we talk about great positions. They're great on the offensive line, but they're not deep any longer. And you can tell because they're making moves. Josh Sills is back, which shocks me. I was surprised that would happen, but we'll see if it's real or not. And by real, I mean, are they going to give him an opportunity? Because those were some nasty accusations, but he was acquitted. That's a really difficult situation to be with the Eagles. And we'll see. He was, 52nd, 53rd guy on the roster when he was put on the exempt list. But they signed Josh Andrews as well because they concern over the depth, and they brought in Dennis Kelly. So they brought in a lot of guys because they're not nearly as comfortable. The 5 starters are great. Same thing at receiver. 2 receivers are great. If you want to believe Quez is elite, feel free. But the depth isn't great. Corners, the top 3. Josh Jobe has been the best backup corner by far, I would say. Zach McPherson, I think he's better in the slot, but I don't think he's stood out. So they're great at a lot of positions and quarterback. I mean, Marcus has not looked good, really at all, to be honest, as a backup quarterback. So
he's a great runner.
Does he not look good when he's running the ball?
Oh, I will say the Eagles defense looks bad. They should be happy that they don't have to play a running quarterback or who can run the football. When that shows up, oof.
In a game, I think both Jalen and Marcus right now could run for 100 yards against that defense.
They are not handling it well when they run the football. How many? I don't know how many practices you've been out yet, but how many? Every time they run that quarterback draw in the red zone, it's like the Red Sea.
They score. There's such a big gap, especially in the B gap. I've noticed that, Marcus Mariota he could go all day. Why would you even throw the ball?
Yeah.
Honestly,
and by the way, to defend Marcus a little bit, the backup offensive line has been pretty poor.
And they rotate. They changed everything up. Steen's the left tackle now. Kelly's the left guard. I don't know where. I guess Andrew's going to be the right guard now.
And half the time he's grabbing for a bad snap, which screws up the whole play. So, if he got to play behind the first team offensive line, he'd probably look a whole lot better. So I do want to add that context into it. But accuracy-wise, throwing the football, he had Jack Stoll wide open and just missed him by 5 yards, like a euchre, just a bit outside.
I will say last night, though, Marcus Mariota's best throw of the night was the pass. That pass to Tyree Cleveland last. Tyree Cleveland needs to catch that. If you're going to make this team, you got to catch that pass.
Yeah, that was Well, Tyree's not going to make the team. So.
No, but that's how you get That's how you get noticed, though.
He might make the practice squad. Yeah, I mean, but
the practice squad's going to get pretty filled up pretty fast if you got Moro or Jomo on the practice squad that you think you can get him through, because he's going to have no chance to make the depth of this defensive line. Somebody may just grab him before he ever gets to the practice squad. But all of a sudden, even though we keep talking about the fact that 16 is such a massive number, with the Eagles, it's going to add up fast because they got a bunch of guys they want to try and get through to the practice squad, do they not?
Yeah, I mean, they're a deep team. So I think fans every year they overrate the waiver process, and we're going to lose 18 guys. And
they never do.
No, it doesn't work like that. But the Eagles are going to be one of the teams that probably loses 2 or 3 guys, because other teams are going to look at that roster and say, no, that's a really good team. Let's take a shot at this guy, and let's take a shot at this guy. So they might be in danger.
They did that to the 49ers last year when the 49ers didn't think they were going to lose Trey Sermon. Then the Eagles said, we'll take him. And that's why I have a feeling, and I hope it's not true because I like him a lot. I don't know if Boston Scott makes this team.
Boy, I think he's going to make the team.
That's what I'm hoping, but I want to see if Nick backs up his words with Trey Sermon.
Yeah, I don't think it could happen. I'm not going to say I'm 100% on it, but I think this organization likes Boston Scott a lot. I think they know. I talk to Jody about utility guys all the time at baseball. Like, there's certain guys who can do it and certain guys who can't. You might be more talented, but if you only get a couple touches every now and again, you don't get a feel for it. You can't perform. Like, they know if they go to Boston Scott, he's going to perform, and they're very comfortable in that. I think that's a trait that is underrated, especially with the coaching staff.
Boston Scott's been here like 7 years now. I like, it feels like it's been longer, but he's been productive.
Yeah, every time that's the point. Every time they got to go to him, he produces, and
especially against the Giants.
Yeah, it's kind of rare, to be honest.
Now you're down there all the time, John. So I need to ask this question of you. Trey Sermon continually gets mentioned by the coach. Jeff just said, let's see if the coach will stand by his Trey Sermon stance. The coach talks him up more than you talk him up. And I ask all the time about what's happening, who made a play, who did this, who did that, who did the other thing. I can't remember the last time you told me, and Trey Sermon busted out and did this one. Is the coach seeing something that nobody else is seeing?
Well, I think it's a little bit conflated now, because when Nick did it twice in the offseason, unprompted. Now it's usually somebody asking him a question about Trey Sermon.
While he's wearing a Kenny Gainwell shirt.
Yeah, and I think people have conflated that and say he keeps bringing up Trey Sermon. Well, now he's getting asked questions about Trey Sermon. And Nick Sirianni, he's telling you, I love the linebacker room. They just signed 2 guys. And he's saying, he's not going to throw one of his guys under the bus. Yeah, I do it all the time, but he's not. I don't think I think Trey Sermon has to beat out Rashad Penny to make this roster.
And I don't think anybody's doing that.
Because DeAndre's here, Kenny's here, and I think Boston's here. So
I think Rashad's here.
Yeah. So that's his path. And yeah, I don't think he's ahead by any stretch. I will say that.
John, here's a question for you. Now that they did sign Jack, they did sign Cunningham. I don't see a future for Nicholas Morrow here. I feel like he's a starter or he's not, or he's just not here.
No, yeah, that's a bad sign for Nicholas Morrow. But it's funny because when Nicholas first got here, he was really pleasant, really happy, really engaged. Last time we talked to him, he was sort of very short and I think he's getting the hint that things aren't going the way that he had hoped. But yeah, I think it's going to be difficult for him now. But Miles Jack and Zach Cunningham might show up and there's nothing left. I mean, they didn't play well last year. Zach was hurt. Miles didn't play well. He played more. These guys, because they have bigger names, don't necessarily. I looked it up in the break real quick. Sorry, Jeff. Mora was 64th in PFF. Jack was 65th.
Yeah. Do you think the familiarity with Nick, like Jack was with the Jaguars and Cunningham was with the Texans, and Cunningham was really good when Nick was with the. Yeah. I mean, I still say if Cunningham's healthy, which he hasn't been,
he's a better player. He's the better player.
Yeah. I think Cunningham could start. I really do.
Cunningham, his second deal was crazy for a linebacker. He was a very good player. But, I don't know if that's left in him. But I do think at his height, he was the better player than Miles Jack. And I don't think it was particularly close, to be honest.
I'm trying to remember last year when Tennessee was in their free fall. They were in the middle of their free fall, and they were asking Vrabel what was wrong with his defense. And he kind of unprompted said, well, Zach Cunningham hasn't played in 2 months. We miss him. So it's clear. Like, I just don't think Tennessee wanted to bring him back. I just think they moved on. But, this could be a blessing in disguise for the Eagles.
Yeah. I was looking it up. I got when he re-signed with the Texans, his second deal, coming out when he was a second round pick, where I just had it. It was crazy. It was
Didn't you get like a 60
4 years, 4 years, 58 million.
That's what.
Wow.
23 and a half games. That's how good a player he was. He was a big time player.
And that was regarded as a great signing at the time.
Yeah. Obviously hasn't been that player for a while. And I don't know how much is left, but as Jeff mentioned, Mike Vrabel's a pretty good defensive mind. I think I'm more excited about him than Miles Jack. And I think it's the opposite because Miles had the big name to most of the fans because Miles had the big name coming out of college. I think Zach is the better player. If there's anything, I don't know if there's anything.
But I also think Miles can fill much needed depth at this position. So I think they're both going to be here.
Yeah, I mean, Linval and Ndamukong were both here. Very similar, but Linval was the more important part of the puzzle. Sue had a bigger name, but Linval was the more important part. I think it's similar here. Zach's, to me, going to be the more important part, but we'll see how it shakes out.
No, and for both of their careers, specifically last year, but basically for their careers, not playmakers. And when we think of playmakers, we think of interceptions or forced fumbles and the like. Neither one of them have really been that at any stage during their career. And that's one of my concerns about the Eagles coming into this year is I knew Morrow wasn't a playmaker, didn't know if Christian Ellis was going to be a playmaker. And yes, Nakobe Dean was a playmaker, but on the collegiate level, hasn't proven he can be a playmaker in the NFL yet. That's not going to be the ballywick of the Eagles linebacker position this year, guys. I just don't know if they're going to have a playmaker period on the roster.
That's where John's boy comes in, Isaiah Simmons.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I don't think the defense is designed to have that type of, linebacker that Jody's talking about, like the Derek Brookses of the world, the Brian Urlachers of the world. Those are like Tampa 2 linebackers who make plays, and they're more important part of the scheme. In this scheme, it's just, hey, clean it up, make the tackle, and hopefully, 2 yards in the backfield rather than 7 yards down the field. I think that's the more sort of crux of the scheme of the defense.
And I think that's why Christian Ellis has a shot here, because last night he made a couple of tackles in the backfield. What we consider tackle. DeAndre Swift, he had tackled for a loss last night. That's why I'm saying let's not get Christian Ellis out of the equation. I actually kind of like how he practiced last night, knowing that Zach Cunningham and Miles Jack are on the sideline, be like, wait, this is disrespect toward me? I'm getting my shot here, and you're not taking it.
Does Nakobe's injury factor into this at all? I remember you telling me during the day, John, when Nakobe went into the tent, it doesn't look like it's anything that bad, but we haven't seen him on the field since. He came right back out, didn't go inside when he got hurt the other day, stayed on the field. Are they just being overly cautious with him, or is this something that Eagle fans actually should be concerned about, that it could be lingering?
I don't think it's serious at all. You know how the Eagles are in training camp. They're going to keep people out until they're 100%. I don't think this has anything to do with Nakobe. It has to do with everybody else.
I would agree with that.
And they want the set. Now, hey, people are going to be concerned about the durability because he's injured in training camp, but that part of it is, and I heard one say he's already hurt. It's not. They're being cautious. They're being cautious. He's not. If there were a game last night instead of a practice, he would have played.
It's like the Hassan Reddick thing, right? You know, everybody was like, "Oh, Hassan Reddick, he's kind of making a quiet statement about his contract." Like, no, he's not. They're just waiting till he's 100%. He played last night, 100%.
Yeah.
It's.
Yeah.
I just think people sometimes like to make storylines. They say it's the media. It's not. If you go on social media, you see where the actual storylines are coming from.
I agree.
Agreed. And they better hope that Nakobe Dean is out, because trying to throw veteran linebackers in there at the last second when camp starts is kind of a tall task for the Eagles this year, and one that I don't think anybody. I'll ask both of you two guys. John, you and I may have mentioned him briefly. Jeff, I know we haven't asked you a question about him. Davion Taylor, we hardly knew ye. They did cut ties with Taylor, who was a relatively high draft pick, and we talk often about how organizations try and project and protect draft picks. Yeah, it gets less with every passing round when you go down, but Taylor was a third-round pick, right? And what did they end up getting out of him as far as career production goes? Basically next to nothing. So that one may have had to sting a little bit for Howie Roseman. Agree or disagree, guys?
You know what? When I look at the 2020 draft, I just see who they picked in the second round, the most controversial pick of them all. And you got a franchise quarterback and probably one of the best players in the NFL. Well, you know you got a top 10 player in the NFL out of it. So, yeah, I guess, you know, we'll call a spade at this point. It's Jalen Reagor was terrible. Davion Taylor was terrible. But you just got to look at Jalen Hurts and say, yeah, this in a way, it's a good draft. It's a great draft.
Yeah. We had that Denver game with Davion.
Yeah, he did.
And then he got hurt and was never the same again. Maybe it was the injury. I don't know. But look, the guy was very raw coming out of college. Barely played high school football because of his religion and his faith. Seventh-day Adventist. And you know, mainly because his family wouldn't let him play, to be honest. But and we always talk about Jordan Mailata, and you know, it kind of exemplifies what a unicorn Jordan really is, from not, you know, playing any football and developing into the player he has at the professional level, whereas a guy like Davion plays very little football and he never gets it. That's more of the normal aspect. And I think the Eagles, Howie says, you got to learn from your mistakes all the time in the draft. I think he'll learn from that mistake. Look, if a player's very raw, you know, all right, maybe take a shot in day 3, not premium picks. And third round picks a premium pick. Don't worry about those guys until day 3. And if they have tremendous, and he does have tremendous athleticism, and maybe it clicks down the road, those are day 3 projects.
That's where I think he learned over the last 2 years, getting the Georgia guys, getting the Alabama guys. Like, do I think Tyler Steen's having a tremendous? No, like Cam Jurgens is entrenched as the right guard, but I see a lot of potential when I'm watching Steen. I feel like if you get Steen a year or 2 with Jeff Stoutland, you're going to see the benefits of that.
By the way, Nick confirmed Cam Jurgens is the starter.
Wow, finally he did.
No, while not
he
confirming.
Didn't. You're funny.
No, well, I asked Nick.
Oh, he joked with McMullen last night about
big smile on his face. He's like, I don't have to name him the starter.
No, I don't have to do it now.
He's the starter. He's the starter.
You should have followed up with, so he's the starter.
Yeah. He's the starter.
No, that's kind of a given at this stage. With they can only keep it under wraps so much when you guys are allowed to show up in practice. I did want to give you guys this piece of info last night. I don't know if it's going to play itself out, but I did a preview spot for the Los Angeles Chargers on CBS Sports last night. And with the talented wide receivers they have in that camp, including a first-round draft pick that they used on a wide receiver, which I really didn't understand because they've got 2 borderline Pro Bowl level wide receivers already. the best wide receiver in the Chargers camp this year has been none other than John Hightower. He has just been stone cold killing it.
Yeah, I don't believe
Charger
that.
camp.
I don't believe that. No,
You
I
don't believe that, huh?
I'm
I
sorry.
do not believe that for a second. You just mentioned Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston.
Quentin Johnston's been the best one. That's what I've been hearing.
Now,
my guy, Joe Reedy, who covers him day in and day out, said the best wide receiver so far in camp. Not projecting he's going to have the best season, but just the guy that has performed best so far in camp for the Chargers been none other than John Hightower.
I believe that he's having a great camp, but yeah, I don't.
We'll
believe
see in
he's
the
best
preseason when I'm
receiver.
watching those games and making my overreactions to every preseason game next week.
If he makes the Chargers and he's catching balls week number 3,
I believe he might make the Chargers.
4th string wide receiver is Greg Ward. We'll be going, wait a minute, why did we ever let him get out the door, Howie?
Jody, your boy last night was driving the Montel Jordan during the open practice.
Who's that?
Greg Ward.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They were playing This Is How We Do It. He's dancing
Sometimes
around.
I forget Greg's still here. Yeah, Greg is chugging away, man.
And he still finds a way on this team. I'm impressed.
He'll be on the practice squad. He will not be on the 53-man roster, but he'll probably be on the practice squad because they do love having him around. Yeah, John, half kiddingly, we haven't got you to comment on it yet about the Eagles' elite 3rd wide receiver, Quez Watkins, who actually went down that road yesterday, earlier last week. It's a fine line, Jeff Kerr, between being confident and being cocky. You like when your players are confident, when they believe in themselves, when they have self-belief that they're going to get the job done. Elite, to me, leaks off into cocky. And I don't think Quez Watkins has done enough in his career to be cocky. What do you think when you heard Quez Watkins self-evaluated himself as elite?
Well, if Quez Watkins was elite, he would have caught that pass in the Super Bowl. That's my definition.
He's banged up, Jeff. Come on. At Jeff Kerr. I'll say this. At Jeff Kerr CBS. Follow Jeff on X, not Twitter. X. I would say that Joseph Nada is closer to Olamide Zaccheaus than Olamide Zaccheaus is to Quez Watkins.
I would agree with that.
Quez has had a good camp. Is he elite? No, that's silly. But, if he improves and takes advantage of those situations, because the Eagles don't need him to have a lot of traffic, they'll be an improved offense. He's got to make those plays.
Yeah, if the Eagles can get the 2021 version of Quez Watkins in 2023, Quez Watkins will be elite for what he is, and that is the 3rd wide receiver. I agree with you. I haven't seen anything out.
You don't want to see an injury. That's why I mean, you don't want to see an injury to AJ or Devontae. He's not going to step up and be a number 2 receiver like evidently John Hightower is with the Chargers. That would hurt the Eagles. But yeah, I mean, he's had a good camp. And I think Britton Covey's going to make this team because nobody's pushing him as the punt returner.
He's the only returner.
Yeah. So really, it's sort of somebody like Joseph Nada or if Deion King can get back from his ankle injury.
Nick did say he's coming back this week.
They would have to beat out Olamide because Olamide has not been close to Quez Watkins at all. And that might be a little bit of a disappointment for the Eagles, to be honest.
I'll tell you what, I think they brought in Olamide to challenge Quez and to take that spot from him. And Quez took the bull by the horns and said, nope, not going to happen.
Yeah. What both of you guys, John, you're there every day, so you'll get more information as the week goes. What do you believe the Eagles want to accomplish? What do you think the game plan is going in to the first preseason game this week? I know it's down to 3. We used to play 5. Now it's only 3. What do you think the Eagles want to come out of the first preseason game?
Honestly,
having done what?
Stay healthy. That's it. That is literally it. I mean, they don't.
I don't want to see a starter play in Saturday's game. I don't.
Yeah.
I want to see the third stringers just light each other up.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm not even being facetious, Jody. I think they'd like to see the backup offensive line I just talked about play a little bit better. And there's certain issues like that, but I they're so good with the starters. Stay as healthy as humanly possible.
We're going to hear about this all week, right? The Ravens 23-game preseason week.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you should. It's the greatest streak in sports.
Lay the points now.
Yeah.
If
Harbaugh is proud of it. But by the way, Jody, I don't know if you paid attention to this, but did you happen to see what the biggest point spread was before Saturday? And we saw why?
You're talking week 1 of the preseason or week 1 of the regular season?
Week 1 of the preseason.
My guess would be the Ravens because they never lose.
It was Denver. And I said, why is
Denver because the coach came out and said he's going to play Russell Wilson and all his starters.
And this is before he said it. So someone tipped them off.
Okay. That's why and people get annoyed at me because I put as much stock in the lines as I do. But I think there's information to be found out there because I'm with you. I think they get certain information before John Q. Public does. So good point by you, Jeff Kerr. Made several good points. Thank you very much, as always, for jumping in. We will talk to you again next week. Have a good week, bud.
Always a pleasure, John and Jody. John, I'll see you, probably Tuesday's next practice, right?
Tuesday, yeah.
You're Tuesday or Wednesday. I'll be
3 in a row. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday practice this week.
It's a game week.
Yeah. They're trying to replicate a game week, by the way. That's why they shifted the schedule.
But then how many starters are we going to see to that game when they actually get around to it? Yeah, okay. You can replicate it to the point where when the game starts, they're
preparation-wise.
Close. Yeah. All right, we shall see. Jeff Kerr, thanks.
Thanks,
John
Jeff.
McMullen, I'm Jody McDonald. You got your Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. We'll come back hour number 2, ready to rock and roll here. Stay with us.